Back on the Nation at 5 with a mega CNN News 18 exclusive, and it's an on-ground investigation. We've conducted an in-depth, thorough, deep dive that shows how on our borders, namely in Bihar, illegal immigrants have taken up hundreds of kilometers of land in an area that's designated as no man's land. This is the border, the open border with Nepal. But clearly, no man's land has been encroached upon by illegals and who are not Nepalese, nor are they Indian citizens. These are illegals who have come in from Bangladesh and also from the Rakhine state. Our investigation has revealed how people from Bangladesh and Rohingyas illegally cross the border via Nepal and blend into the local population, embedding themselves with the use of fake government documents and also paying the locals to try and embed themselves into their local family trees and getting their papers made. Now, this has also led to a major demographic change in the areas over the last many years. This is all in Simanchal. This has gone unchecked, unopposed, and perhaps somewhere there is also the entire game of political appeasement and vote bank politics that has allowed this to happen. It poses a major national security threat. CNN News 18's Anvit Srivastava gets us this special report.
The Indo-Nepal border, thickly populated colonies which on paper are demarcated no man's land. The first signs of a growing population. The signs would not have been so ominous if census figures for the state of Bihar and on-ground evidence about rise in Muslim population were not so contradictory. Agencies are worried these are signs of not just illegal immigration, but also a contribution to rising radicalism in Bihar. The 7 districts, Madhepura, Katiyar, Saharsa, Kishanganj, Araria, Supol and Purnia in Bihar form Simanchal that runs parallel to the Indo-Nepal border. The belt has recently witnessed a dramatic demographic shift that not only reflects the decades of ongoing vote bank politics, but has also widened the scope for illegal activities along India's international border, if not acts of terror alone.
Araria, Madhepur, Saharsa, Katiyar, Kishanganj, Supol and Purnia. These 7 districts in northeastern part of Bihar form a sub-region popularly known as Simanchal. As you can see the board behind me, we are headed towards Simanchal. Why? Because recently this region has witnessed a dramatic demographic shift. But why is it our concern? Because security agencies believe that most of the people who are living here are not even Indians. Majority of them are either Bangladeshis, Rohingyas, Nepalese, or have come in from elsewhere, sneaked into Indian borders, have got their fake documents made and are living there. Time to time, agencies say that they also indulge in criminal activities which eventually cause a threat to the national security as well. But who are these people? Who are the people who are giving them shelters? Who are those who are providing them logistical support? We are here to find all the answers to these questions. We are here to find the ground reality.
मैं मानता हूं कि पाकिस्तान की तुलना में पाकिस्तान से तो आतंकवादी आते हैं, लेकिन ये डेमोग्राफिक चेंज करने के लिए ये हमारे लिए दुश्मन नंबर 1 है बांग्लादेश. बांग्लादेश से लोग आते हैं, वो आके और यहाँ हमारी पूरी डेमोग्राफी को चेंज कर रहे हैं.
Indian government census data shows that since 1961 to 2011, total population growth recorded by Bihar was 198.71%. The data also shows that in these 5 decades, the growth of the Hindu population was 185.9% and the growth of the Muslim population was 273.81%. The concern here is that experts and security agencies suspect that a majority of these people are not Indian Muslims, but Bangladeshis and likely Rohingyas too. Security agencies say these illegal immigrants are able to get fake documents which integrate them with existing families, making it difficult to pinpoint and crack down.
One of the major reasons for the dramatic demographic shift in the Simanchal area is that it runs parallel to the Indo-Nepal border. I'm right now standing on a road that lies in India, but on my left is the no man's land, which you can see is quite heavily inhabited and across which lies Nepal. After talking to officials in several agencies, be it the IB or paramilitary forces deployed in the area, local police or officers from the anti-human trafficking units or anti-terror units, we have managed to crack the basic modus operandi. Groups of Bangladeshi men, often accompanied by Rohingyas, board a vehicle from Indo-Bangladesh border, mostly near Siliguri, which drops them off at the Indo-Nepal border. The game actually begins there. These men then take a U-turn and enter India via porous borders of Nepal and India in Bihar, mostly in Araria, Kishanganj, Supol and Raxaul. Once here, they settle in settlements like you can see behind me, temporary settlements which with time take shape of pakka houses. If intelligence agencies and police are to be believed, these colonies and these settlements also often become breeding grounds and training camps for the radical groups like PFI and other groups which hunt on these people due to their poor economic conditions and given vulnerability.
जिसके पास ज़्यादा सामान है उसको हम चेक करते हैं और वैसे भी जब ज़्यादा भीड़ होती है तो इनको डीपली हम चेक नहीं कर सकते पर जिस पर डाउट होता हम उसको रोक करके चेक करते हैं।
जो आदमी खाली हाथ आ रहा है, औरत जो खाली हाथ आ रहे हैं, वो नेपाल से इंडिया आ भी सकते हैं और इंडिया से नेपाल जा भी सकते हैं खाली हाथ।
हाँ, ये हमारी ट्रीटी है, इंडिया नेपाल की ट्रीटी है और इसके अंतर्गत हम इनको आने जाने देते हैं।
इंडिया और नेपाल की जो इंडियन पॉलिसी है वो रोटी बेटी का रिश्ता है, इसका ये लोग नाजायज़ फ़ायदा उठाते हैं। बहुत सारी ओपन यहाँ पे बॉर्डर है जहाँ पे बस आप एक चहलकदमी करके आप इस पार से उस पार हो जाते हैं और ना ही उस तरह से वहाँ पे एजेंसी हो या एसएसबी के जवान हो या नेपाल पुलिस से की ज़्यादा पूछताछ आपसे करती है कि आप कौन हो, कहाँ से आए हो। ऐसा है नहीं, इसीलिए ये लोग कुछ ज़्यादा ही संख्या में बॉर्डर टप के बिहार आ जाते हैं।
But how did these settlements, which house thousands, go unnoticed for decades? Political experts, researchers, academicians and local social activists say it has been possible only because of the political patronage that these groups enjoy as a probable vote bank.
जैसे लालू प्रसाद जी आते हैं 91 से 2001 में ये 35.48 हो रहा है, 35.48 ये मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन अचानक वृद्धि हो गई। और उसके बाद 2001 से जिसमें नीतीश जी भी है शामिल, उसमें भले राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर 24% का ग्रोथ हुआ है मुस्लिम, लेकिन बिहार में ये 27.95 यानी 28% ग्रोथ है।
I'm right now in Nepal and as I walk forward, I've now entered India. Across 1700 kilometers of Indo-Nepal border that spans across Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, there are 26 authorized trade routes through which Indians and Nepalese can walk freely in and out in the two countries. But if we talk about the third country nationals, they have to report at the integrated checkposts. Out of 7 sanctioned integrated checkposts, 2 of them are active in Bihar itself. The role of these checkposts are that whenever a third country national enters India, he is examined by the officials of the immigration, customs and other departments including the IB. But if we talk about the ground reality of Rohingyas and Bangladeshis, the reality is much different.
A majority of these illegal migrants are scrap collectors, transporting tons of scrap to makeshift godowns in villages in the Simanchal area along the Indo-Nepal border. The rising numbers of these godowns, housing quintals of unchecked and illegally transported scrap, has become a concern for security agencies. Our team went undercover to visit one of these scrap godowns and interacted with the labourers there. The interaction only unveils the magnitude of the threat which these porous borders possess.
ये सब बासमती है, ये क्या कहते हैं, बेले से सब उठाते हैं क्या? क्या? ये सब बेले में मिल जाता है ना? सब
नेपाल से लेके चल आते हैं, रोकता नहीं है सर।
भंसार काटना पड़ता है। कहाँ टैक्स लगता है?
भंसार तो अपना लोग का नहीं ना है, बेला बासमतिया में भंसार चालू नहीं ना है।
अंदर जो जाता है ना,
हाँ,
भंसार लगता है। साइकिल का भंसार लेता है।
साइकिल का भंसार नेपाल पुलिस लेता है।
यहाँ लोकी वाला, यहाँ पे छोटी सी भंसार है ना।
और फिर उधर से जब कचरा लेके आते हैं कबारा तो नहीं रोकता है
ना, आने का रुकता नहीं, खाली बड़ा सामान आने में देता है।
कैसे आप लोग एसएसबी के सामने में चल जाते हैं? एसएसबी सब परेशान नहीं करता है, नेपाल ये पुलिस परेशान करता होगा।
वो यहीं पर परेशान करता है, उसके बाद जो है ना कबाड़ी वाला को कहीं नहीं रुकेगा। वो
महीना लेता होगा ना?
महीना दे रहे हैं।
महीना महीना लेता होगा तब ना नेट टोकता है।
महीना देता है, उसके बाद जो है डेली
महीना समझते हैं, हफ्ता
हफ्ता। हाँ,
हफ्ता,
जो खाद वाला हफ्ता
हाँ जैसे खाद वाला वही उसी टाइप से लोग नेपालो पुलिस को देते हैं, एसएसबी को।
है, नेपाल पुलिस है, ऑफिस है ना।
ये भंसार जो है बॉर्डर के उस साइड नेपाल में है।
उसी को गया था।
क्या नाम हुआ आपका?
मोहम्मद शकील।
मोहम्मद शकील।
Last month, Nepal's armed police force arrested 15 men and recovered from them 2 kilograms of uranium-like chemical, which was to be sneaked into India illegally via Jogbani, that lies in Araria at the international Indo-Nepal border. Even though Indian intelligence agencies are yet to link any of these arrested men with a terror group, but what has become their recent concern is the rising number of such scrap go-downs along the international Indo-Nepal border, particularly in the Simanchal area. When we spoke to some of these scrap dealers off camera, they told us that they bring all of this junk from Nepal and sell it into India. They said they bring it either in the late hours of the night or by paying security agencies on the either sides.
खास करके यह क्षेत्र जो है नेपाल और इंडिया का एकदम ओपन सीमावर्ती क्षेत्र है। जब एक पाँव आप जब चाहे नेपाल में दे सकते हैं, एक पाँव जब चाहे इंडिया में दे सकते हैं। और आए दिन पढ़ाए यहाँ पे कभी गांजा तस्करी के रूप में पकड़े जाना, तो कभी जो है अननोन पर्सन के द्वारा पकड़े जाना, कभी ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग। इस कुछ दिन पहले हमने कुछ लड़कियों को विदेशी लड़कियाँ भी यहाँ पकड़ी गई हैं। तो इसके लिए सबसे पहले जो भारत के जो भी जाँच एजेंसियाँ हैं, चाहे जो भी हो, चाहे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का हो या सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को हो, उनको इस क्षेत्र में गहन जांच करके अगर वैसे लोग यहाँ हैं उनको चिन्हित करके उसके ऊपर कार्रवाई करने की आवश्यकता है, ताकि यह क्षेत्र सुरक्षित रहे।
We are at Bela Gram Panchayat in Araria, and just 300 meters away from here is Indo-Nepal international border. Close to me here, close by, is a settlement which is dominated mostly by Bangladeshi Muslims. When we spoke to them, many of them told us that they had been living here for decades. But as far as security agencies are concerned, they suspect that these men have been giving refuge to those who continue to come into India via Nepal from Bangladesh and indulge into criminal activities, if not alone terror activities. So much so that these people also allow them to enter their own existing family trees by getting made fake documents like Aadhaar, voter ID, ration card and other documents. For some, these people are vote banks and enjoy political patronage as these settlements are growing day by day. For some, they are just cheap laborers, while some believe that these settlements are a breeding ground for terror activities. Only in time to come we'll see if these settlements witness any such crackdown by the police or any agencies, or they only continue to grow. From Bela, near Indo-Nepal international border, with video journalist Arjun Singh, this is Anvit Shrivastava in a special report for CNN News 18.
Well, Anvit and Arunima join us. Anvit, you've been down on ground and you've seen all of it. But that last stand-up that you did was 300 meters from the Nepal border. And you see Pakka constructions there. And you are saying there are people who claim to be living there for decades. And the agencies do not trust that their activities are above board. But the agencies have not removed them. If it's no man's land, how is it being occupied? Do they have legal title to that land?
Yes, so Anand, that was where I was just 300 meters away from border, but to our surprise, I even went just at the border, and just you won't believe it, just 100 meters away from there, where there are kacha settlements, just cluster settlements. Just 50 meters or 100 meters away from there are pakka houses which these people have built. Now, this is what the security agencies say, that initially they settle into these cluster settlements and gradually they move out of it once their Aadhaar cards, ration card and voter IDs are made. Then they move out into the mainland from no man's land, and then they settle into pakka houses. Many of the houses there were under construction, many of the mosques we saw were under construction, and that is where they take initial refuge, and then they move into the mainland and then they get their houses built. Many of these clusters, all of these constructions are illegal. There have not been any administrative crackdown. There has not been any survey to find out whether these are encroachments or whether they have property documents or not. There has been no effort by the state government, and that is the result why over the decades number of these settlements on this particularly Simanchal belt that shares international border with Nepal has continued to rise. And this is also a concern for the security agencies, because they say that this rising number of people who are not Indians, who are foreign nationals, either Bangladeshis, Nepalese, Rohingyas, whoever they are, they come into India through agents, they pay locals who had been living there for decades, they get their documents made, they get seeded into the existing families, and then they become unidentifiable. Now these security agencies, the biggest concern is that these people, once they get their documents, they move to the other parts of the country.
Right.
We have also seen in Delhi how they indulge into crime. Over time, many Bangladeshis have been arrested. Last year, a Rohingya was also charge sheeted. It was found that he had built fake documents, and then he had been living in Uttar Pradesh, Deoband, for 3 years in a mosque. So they are given refuge, and that is how they are more and more of them are coming into regularly. Now, not only state government but also central agencies have been keeping an eye on them. And when we spoke to some of the intelligence agency officials, they said that they keep getting regular inputs about this. But because there has not been any major crackdown by state government or state police, that is the reason why such a glaring lapse has not come to foray, unless and until we went down and we found that these glaring lapses on ground. When we spoke to some officials in Bihar off camera, they told us they get such inputs. They have also found that there are some gangs operating which get their fake documents made, and that is how this entire nexus is working, because they are getting aid, they are getting funds. Earlier, like Arunima also mentioned, they have been getting financial funds from be it Turkey or Qatar or wherever. So, and these mosques and madrasas, which officials said that they have grown in this belt by 35%. These are the places where all these funds come from and then are distributed to people who work on ground for them.
True. Now, Arunima, you've also been speaking to sources within the Home Ministry and within those who are supposed to keep close tabs on as far as internal security is concerned. This is a huge matter of concern. This land does not belong to them. They've got pakka structures. They come here as illegals. They're trying to embed themselves in our society. But more importantly, they've now got access to funds, and there are people who are helping them, either within the security establishment or outside as far as political and social organizations who are giving them cover fire.
See, trafficking is not a new worry. This has been going on for decades now. The agencies are aware of that. The worry now is that trafficking is now taking another dimension. People of Bangladeshi origin, people who are being labeled Rohingyas, even Nepal, which is supposed to be a Hindu Rashtra, there is a growth of Muslim populated colonies on the Indo-Nepal border on the Nepal side. This is what agencies are suspecting. And the number of mosques and madrasas which are coming up. Of course, if the population grows, they would want a place to pray. They would want their children to get their religious education. But the suspicion is that the population to madrasa ratio, population to masjid ratio is quite high compared to what this ratio is in the rest of the country. The fear, therefore, being that somebody is trying to ensure that these migrants are radicalized and they're then recruited for a cause which is not positive for India's interest. Of course, PFI is a suspect, is a number one suspect, especially after the crackdown that we saw recently. After speaking to SSB, intelligence agencies and Bihar police, we learned that PFI wanted to do a mega show of strength in 2023, and therefore perhaps this design to try and recruit as many people, be it Bangladeshis, be it Rohingyas, and then do a show of strength and thereby get more people to come to their cause. What is the ultimate reason why PFI wants to recruit so much? What exactly is the plan that they have in mind? That conspiracy is still unfolding. But it is true that in Bihar Police's investigation, it has come up that arms training, lathi training, sword training was being given to these recruits. If they are Indians, if they have friends and family here, perhaps it would be a little more difficult to radicalize them or to get them to do any act of violence. But if these are people who have no direct connection with this land and with the people of this country, agencies are worried and they're suspicious. Will they then be used as sleeper cells and direct recruits if a terror conspiracy is ultimately worked out?
Did you find people who did not seem to be locals but claimed to be locals there, Anvit?
See, we went to many areas which are known by locals to be Bangladeshi colonies, and when we went there, we asked them off camera or maybe during a sting, we asked them, where do you belong to? They said that we belong to Katiyar, Araria, Supol. They took different names. But obviously we couldn't ask them to show documents, because whenever an outsider goes there and asks them to show documents, they, he's being looked upon as a suspicious person. But when we spoke to locals, they told us that this particular area, wherever we went in the colonies, because these Bangladeshis come in and settle in colonies, and these colonies are known by locals to be Bangladeshi colony. They call it Bangladeshi Tola, they call it Bengali Tola, because Tola is known as a cluster settlement. So they call it Bengali Tola. Then there are various Bengali Tolas in Araria, in Jogbani, in Bela, wherever we traveled across the international border. And there are various such colonies. We went there, we spoke to people, and when we spoke to them casually, they said that some of them told us that they belong to Katiyar. They took different names, but when you ask them to show documents, some of them have documents, but many of them are living there without any documents. It just, all what is needed is just a crackdown on them, and the agencies will find themselves that many of them don't have any documents to show.
Now, if they don't have documents to show, what are they doing? And how is it that our establishment and our forces are allowing such people? Yes, it's an open border, but that's between India and Nepal. It's not for Bangladeshis, Rohingyas and non-Nepalis, non-Indians to come there and settle there and with an ulterior motive or design. Arunima and Anvit, thank you for your inputs, and we will take this story forward later tonight on The Right Stand. But right now, taking this discussion forward, I have Captain Alok Bansal joining us, and I also have Pathikrit Pine joining us at this point. Before we go across to our guests, just quickly look at the problem of demographic alteration. When you're changing the demography of that particular place, what it results in are instances like in Simanchal and in Jharkhand, where suddenly it became about Jummah holidays and enforcing Jummah holidays, claiming that we are at least 75% of the population, and what is it that our writ will run. This is unnatural, is what observers are saying, who have been looking, and census researchers are saying this is unnatural because this is against the trend across the country. Now, what's happened here? There's a surge in Muslim population due to illegal migration. This is what IB and SSB sources are telling us. There is a surge, and 90% of the Nepali Muslims have been pushed towards this Madheshi Terai. But what's happening is that amongst these Nepali Muslims, you also have Rohingyas and Bangladeshis. What's also happened is 694 madrasas and mosques have been set up in the last 2 years itself. So the question is, if these people have nowhere to go and they're fleeing and they're coming to India to find a place to settle, who's giving them so much of money to set up so many establishments in 2 years itself? Rohingyas have been brought in via Nepal border. Fake Aadhaar cards have been made and distributed. The illegals have been declared as legal Muslim families because they've been embedded. There is seeding which is being done. Say, weeding out illegal immigrants becomes very difficult because these people come as members of existing families there, who claim to be there for nearly 2-3 decades. So even if they're there for 2-3 decades but without valid papers on land that does not belong to them and where they should not be, does that legalize them and legalize their stay in India is another question. The PFI is suspected to be helping immigrants gain influence. This is what IB and SSB sources are telling us. And look at the numbers. The numbers then talk about itself. Over the last 40 to 50 years, 1961 to 2011, 1971 to 2011, the demographic shift itself speaks volumes. Supal, the Hindu population growth is 215.7%. Of course, larger population. So you should have a higher number. But look at the growth of the Muslim population. This is unnatural. 365.23. Similar case in Araria, similar case in Kishanganj, where it's nearly 300%, 350% plus growth of the Muslim population, which experts believe is unnatural, and it's happening because you have got illegals, non-Indians, non-Indian Muslims who are coming there and living illegally, embedding themselves and trying to alter the demographics. So then let's look at Purnia. Purnia again, 207.58% Hindu population growth, but 331% here. Look at Katihar. Less than 200% growth in the Hindu population, but nearly 342% growth in the Muslim population. Similar case with Madhepura, 200% growth in Hindu population, 314.66% growth in the Muslim population. These numbers should itself baffle people. And since 2011, Alok Bansal ji, we've not had a census. We don't have census data for nearly more than a decade and 11 years now. So the things could have changed. And if the fresh numbers come, jaw will drop.
There is no doubt in my mind that if we have a fresh census, the figures that will come out will be extremely alarming. And this is actually regrettable that in our border areas, which are strategically extremely important, especially in Bihar and Bengal, which are very close to what we call as a chicken snack area, there has been a concerted campaign to bring in outsiders and settle them there. And this has been done on both sides of the international border, in Tarai area of Nepal as well as in India. And in fact, this is the area which has been used by all sorts of anti-India elements to smuggle people into India for all sorts of illegal activities that take place in India. In fact, ISI has been using this area to infiltrate terrorists, spies, and all sorts of people. And I think such an activity cannot happen without the collusion of certain members of the state administration as well as certain members of the central police organization, which is charged with the responsibility of guarding borders. Now, these people are obviously failing in their duties because these people are infiltrating, and the numbers and the figures that you have given are absolutely stark and alarming. And I think time has come where a national consensus needs to be built and drastic actions need to be taken. Those officials under whose charge this sort of infiltration has taken place, this sort of demographic change has taken place, must be held accountable and must be charged with criminal conspiracy and then made to answer as to how this sort of a thing has happened. And I think this is playing with nation security, and I think everybody in the country, both as far as state administration and the central government is concerned, must look at this issue with very, very serious concern and take drastic action immediately.
Look at the security concerns, Patikripta. Jamatul Mujahideen, Bangladesh operating out of there. Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent operating out of there. People with who are not Indians, who have got fake IDs and are moving out of, entering into India, settling there and then moving and embedding themselves across the country. More importantly, look at this. They have turned the school holidays. They are now dictating when the school should take its holidays. They are already dictating policy saying we are more than 70%. And they are not even Indian citizens.
Anand, you asked what are we doing? Let me tell you, we are in deep slumber as a nation. The police keeps on doing firefighting every day, so they are not bothered about it. I don't know what the Babus do. So far as the regional political parties are concerned, we know what is their intention and what they do. But let me also reiterate, with due respect, BJP has been in power with Nitish Kumar in Bihar for a long time. And what have they been doing? So that's a very big question. And the larger question is, I mean, these policies we have discussed before also, if you remember, Anand, that these age-old policies of open border and allowing people to come in, they were relevant at one point of time. Today, these are self-defeating. Why don't we have a fencing? That is, so if these things are happening, the only country responsible for this is we ourselves. I mean, the Bangladeshis are there to enter, but we are allowing them to enter. We have opened that border. It's like Abel, Mujhe Mar, so they are entering. And secondly, tell me one thing, do we have, in spite of all the threats that we have with so many internal security dimension, does India have an internal security doctrine? The answer is no. We do not have an internal security doctrine. We actually still, it's so shocking and shameful that even today we put everything under the garb of things being being law and order, being a state subject. Everything comes under law and order issue. So where is the onus of the central police force official over there to do something? He doesn't know under which law will he stop it. There is no law. There is no anti-infiltration law. If there are countries where you enter illegally, you can be incarcerated for decades. In India, what happens? We reward them. There are at least 1 crore Bangladeshis. I'm telling you with lot of confidence, Anand. There are at least 1 crore Bangladeshis who have valid ID, Aadhaar card and voter ID card of India.
No, that is a danger. We have got more than 4 crore illegals, and you are saying nearly 1 crore people who have already got official documents in the country and claim to be inhabitants here. Earlier, Captain Alok Bansal, people would say, I'm from Malda, Murshidabad, when you ask them, and you know very clearly that they are not from India. But that's what they would say, and you know that they have actually moved in from Bangladesh and they have entered because the borders were porous, riverine, etc., and they would get in. The same situation happened in Assam. Now they will turn around and say, I am from Araria, I am from Kishanganj, I am from Supol. And they'll claim to be Indian citizens.
See, even today, you look in Delhi NCR, most of the Bangladeshis who are there, they claim to be from Malda, Murshidabad. And if they are changing the demographics in Araria, Kishanganj, the similar things would happen. Even though we may not have an anti-infiltration law, but having fake identities is a criminal offense. That can be attacked. People who are living in an area which is government land can be actually targeted. Now, to say that there is no law and the government cannot take action, to my mind, is not correct. There are enough provisions within the existing law to take actions against these people who are illegally settled. They are living in areas, they are occupying territory, they are occupying land which does not belong to them. What are the state government agencies doing? What are the government agencies doing? And what is the border guarding force doing? That is what is the question. Because there is a border guarding force. Today we have proliferated border guarding forces. We have a separate force for every border. Now, with that sort of a proliferation, if we are not able to stop this sort of illegal immigration, these border guarding forces should be taken to task.
Not just that, are they being told to look the other way? That's the political patronage angle which comes to the fore, where suddenly these people have become so strong and they're embedding themselves locally. And that if there is one group which has been there for 15 years, they will enable some other group which will be there for 10 years. That group will work together to enable somebody who's come in for 5 years. That group will then enable those who are coming in the last 5 months. And that's what we are saying, that the accumulation becomes so big and they become so strong as such a strong lobby that you can't take them on. And they will try and muscle their way. That's exactly what we are seeing manifest in Simanchal. With the school holidays itself, it showed. If they can impress upon that entire area has to shut down, not on the regular holidays, but on a different day, because that's what they want, then you know that the influence is growing and how much of muscle they can flex. And that should be the first alarm bell that should go, that what have we done? The other aspect is that all these terror groups which are now coming into Bangladesh and operating out of Bangladesh, entering India like that. And that's another issue. Smuggling drugs, that's the third and fourth issue. Plenty of issues, but what's happening? Are we waking up? We're putting out the investigation here at CNN News 18 so that those who have been deep in slumber wake up now to smell the coffee and see the reality on ground. Patikrit Mayan, Alok Bansalji, thank you very much. We're going to take a very short break. The story continues later tonight on The Right Stand. When we come back, there is fresh trouble for Anubrata Mandal. Stay with us.